My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 41 years old, born and raised in Boise, Idaho, now living just outside Denver with my wife, Madison. We've been married for 14 years. 14 long, beautiful, complicated years. We have two kids, Noah, 12, and Ellie, 9, and a German shepherd named Juno, who somehow understands me better than most people. I run a mid-sized real estate appraisal firm. It's not flashy, but it pays well and gives me enough flexibility to be there for my kids. Madison works in healthcare administration at a regional hospital, a job that seemed stable, honest, and purpose-driven. The kind of job you admire someone for doing. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. Not the storybook couple with weekend getaways and candlelit dinners, but real. We argued about money. We argued about time. We argued when we were tired. But we always came back to each other. At least I did. Looking back, it started small, like it always does. A locked drawer in her home office I had never noticed before. One day, I went in to grab a power bank before picking up Noah from soccer, and the drawer wouldn't budge. Nothing suspicious about that. Everyone has a drawer for private stuff, right? But Madison never used to lock anything. That same week, she started leaving for work earlier. Not crazy early, just 30 minutes ahead of schedule. But then she'd come home later. Her reason? New system rollout at the hospital. Everyone stretched thin. I believed her. One night, she fell asleep on the couch. Her phone buzzed. Just once. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But the message preview lit up, and I caught a name I didn't recognize. Riley, work cell. The message read, "Don't forget what we said. This weekend is ours." My stomach dropped. But then I reminded myself, I trust my wife. Maybe it's a girl's trip. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's anything but what it sounds like. So I said nothing. But silence has weight. It builds. It presses against your ribs at 2 a.m. and makes you stare at the ceiling while the woman next to you breathes peacefully. Then came the second message. 2 days later. Different tone. "Don't bail again. I miss you. You promised." I still didn't confront her. But I did start digging. And what I found wasn't a name. It was a trail. Receipts. One from a boutique hotel in Castle Rock. A half-day PTO request I knew nothing about. And finally, one Thursday morning, she left her tablet unlocked. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but I did it anyway. I opened her email. There weren't dozens of messages. Just one folder. Hidden. Marked Archives. Like it belonged in a museum. Like it was ancient and dusty and forgotten. Inside were 37 emails. All from Riley F. Halston, director of IT at her hospital. Her boss. They weren't pornographic. They weren't even romantic in the classic sense. They were worse. They were intimate, emotional, wounded, like two people escaping into each other. One line hit me like a brick to the chest. "With you, I don't feel invisible like I do at home." She wasn't talking about Riley. She was talking to him. About me. My chest went cold. Not angry. Just hollow. I stared at the last email in the chain. Riley had written, "You deserve someone who sees you. I'll book the lake house again if you're still in." Madison had replied, "I'll think of an excuse. I need you too." That was when something shifted in me. I didn't rage. I didn't flip furniture or scream. I just stood up, walked to the mirror, and stared at myself like I was a stranger. My reflection looked tired, like a man watching his house slowly burn down, but still holding the hose like it might matter. That night, I kissed her goodnight. Whispered, "I love you." She said it back. She always did. The next day, I bought a burner phone. Just like that. Because if she was living a double life, so would I. I didn't use the burner phone to cheat. That's not what this is. I used it to plan, to prepare, to see what I had missed. I started small, cross-checking dates. Days she said she was at the hospital, but had actually been 40 miles away. A couple of lunches charged to her card at a quiet cafe near the lake house. She thought she was careful. She wasn't. But what I didn't expect was that someone else was already watching her too. It was a rainy Tuesday. I was working from home when someone rang the bell, 2 short chimes. Juno barked. I opened the door, expecting a delivery or a neighbor. But the man who stood there wasn't from around here. He was dressed like a Sunday sermon, pressed button-up, clean-shaven, polite smile. Around 50, salt and pepper beard. Calm eyes. "Are you Ethan Cole?" he asked. I hesitated. "Yeah." He glanced over his shoulder, then stepped a little closer, lowering his voice. "My name's Gregory Halston, Riley's father." I blinked. "Excuse me." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thin manila envelope. No words, just handed it to me. Then he looked down at his shoes, sighed, and said, "I'm not here to cause trouble, but you should know what kind of man is seeing your wife." I was frozen. You're sure?" "I'm not guessing," he said. "Riley's mother passed 2 years ago. Since then, he's been unrecognizable. I tried to confront him once. He told me to stay out of his life. But this is a pattern, Mr. Cole. Your wife isn't the first. She might not even be the only one right now." I opened the envelope. Inside were photos. Printed. A little grainy, but clear enough. Madison, Riley, holding hands. Same boutique hotel. Same cafe. Same lake house driveway. A date written on the back of each one in pen. Gregory added, "I didn't mean to find her. I was tracking my son, trying to build a file for legal reasons. He's dangerous. Not just a cheater, a manipulator. Women lose everything after him. One even lost custody of her kids." I looked at him. My hands are trembling. "Why tell me?" "Because no one told me when my wife was alive. She died not knowing who her son really was. I won't let that happen again." Then he left. No drama. No storming off. Just a man carrying the weight of his son's sins on his shoulders. I closed the door and sat down at the dining table. I didn't touch the photos again for hours. That night, Madison came home late. Again. Wet hair. Tired eyes. She kissed me on the cheek. I looked at her and almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because I finally knew. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Long day." She smiled faintly. "Yeah, same." We sat down to eat. Noah talked about his science project. Ellie asked if we could get pizza Friday. It felt normal. Too normal. That's when I realized the worst part wasn't that she was cheating. It was that she had already left me, emotionally, mentally, months ago. Maybe years. And she thought I didn't see it. So I smiled. Played along. Because now I had the file. And I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to expose everything, but not yet. Not until I found out exactly what Riley had done to the others. What he was doing right now. And what Madison was truly hiding. Because it wasn't just an affair. It was deeper. Stranger. And I had a feeling the worst was still coming. I didn't sleep much after Gregory Halston left. I lay awake that night. Madison next to me, breathing softly. She had no idea I knew. No clue I was unraveling the threads behind her perfectly ironed lies. I kept going back to that envelope. Those photos. That name, Riley Halston. It echoed through my mind like a quiet scream. The next day, I worked from the basement and started making calls. First to a private investigator I knew through a former client. Then to an old friend from college who worked in risk management for a healthcare network. I wasn't just looking into Riley anymore. I was tracing Madison's steps. Her financials, her past. And that's when I found something strange. A payment. Not big. Just enough to feel out of place. $1, $200 wired from Madison's personal checking account to a woman named Teresa Whitmore, 8 months ago. Labeled as consulting. I looked her up. A licensed marriage and family therapist in Boulder. But when I called the number on her website, the line didn't ring. It went straight to a disconnected message. The office had been shut down. Digging deeper, I found court records. Teresa had lost her license. And in the attached court documents, one name kept popping up. Riley Halston. Turns out, Teresa had been involved in a lawsuit filed by another woman, who claimed Riley had manipulated her into secret sessions under the guise of therapy. The woman lost her job, her marriage, and her reputation. Teresa was part of that cover-up. Whether she did it knowingly or not, I couldn't tell. But the fact Madison had wired her money, that meant she knew. I sat there for a long time. Nothing in me wanted to believe my wife was capable of this level of deception. This wasn't just an affair. It was something strategic, like she was cleaning up behind Riley. Like she was in too deep and didn't know how to get out. Or worse, didn't want to. The next day, I went to see Gregory again. He invited me in. His house was quiet, bare. No pictures on the walls, except for one, an old framed photo of his late wife and a young Riley, maybe 10 years old. We sat across from each other in his living room. No TV, no music, just the tick of an old wall clock. I found something, I told him. He listened. He didn't blink when I brought up the therapist. He just nodded quietly like he already knew. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. You're not the first husband Riley's tangled up. And your wife isn't just a victim, Ethan. Sometimes he picks women with fractures. People already on the edge. Then he gives them a reason to jump. He walked to the shelf, opened a drawer, and pulled out a file. Another envelope. Thicker this time. Photos, letters, transcripts. 3 women. One of them, Susan Dane, had a restraining order filed against Riley. Another had attempted suicide. The third, she disappeared. Her car was found near Red Feather Lakes. Keys in the ignition. No sign of her. No charges were ever filed. Riley always walked away clean. Gregory stared at me like he was holding something he couldn't carry anymore. I tried to stop him, he said. But the system doesn't protect men like you until it's too late. He paused. Has Madison changed the insurance policies lately? Or asked about wills? My heart stuttered. 2 weeks ago, she had mentioned it. Just updating our life insurance paperwork through work, she'd said casually over dinner. I thought nothing of it. Until now, my stomach twisted. I went home early that day. Madison was still at work. I opened our bedroom closet, pulled down the fireproof box where we kept our family documents, and checked the insurance files. There it was, newly printed. She had taken out a supplemental life policy. On me, through her employer. Small but significant. I sat down on the bed and looked around the room. The photos of our wedding. The anniversary card I'd given her 6 months ago, still sitting on her nightstand. I stared at it. Then I opened it. Inside, something fell out. A slip of paper folded tightly. Not part of the card. A name and a number, written in looping handwriting I didn't recognize. Call if you ever need to disappear. T. It wasn't addressed to her. It was hidden from her. And suddenly, something flipped. What if she wasn't just being manipulated? What if she was scared? What if this whole thing, this affair, this distancing, was a trap she'd walked into and couldn't escape? What if I'd been blaming the wrong person all along? And if so, why hadn't she told me? The note haunted me. Call if you ever need to disappear. T. It wasn't Riley's handwriting. It was careful, older, and written with purpose. I tried the number. Disconnected. So I did what I do best. I searched. Using the area code, I narrowed it to somewhere near the Rocky Mountain foothills, around Nederland, Colorado. Rural. Quiet. The kind of place people go to be forgotten. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving that day. I told Madison I was working late. She didn't ask questions. She barely looked up from her phone. I drove for nearly 2 hours. Trees thickened as I climbed. Cell service faded. I passed through a small town with a grocery store, a gas station, and not much else. Then I found her. The cabin sat tucked back behind a bend in the road, barely visible. An old pickup sat out front, its bed covered with a tarp. I knocked once. No answer. Knocked again. The door opened slowly. The woman who answered looked about 60. Long gray braid, worn denim shirt, piercing eyes that studied me like she was counting my bones. You're Madison's husband, she said flatly. I nodded, stunned. Ow! She told me you'd come, someday, if she didn't make it out. My breath caught. What do you mean, make it out? The woman stepped aside and motioned me in. Her name was Teresa Maxwell. Not T from the note. The T. She had been Madison's psychology professor during her undergrad years in Missoula. Mentor, friend, confidant. Then, briefly, something more, a protector during Madison's first spiral. Teresa poured coffee and sat at a creaking table littered with newspaper clippings and old Polaroids. She explained it in pieces. Madison met Riley once, back in college. Just once. He wasn't a professor. He wasn't a student. He was a speaker, visiting for a panel on digital security. Charismatic, quiet, intense. They dated briefly, and then he disappeared, but not before doing damage. Back then, he didn't leave a trail, Teresa said. No texts, no photos, just fragments. But Madison unraveled after him. Grades tanked. She isolated. Said she felt like she'd been rewritten, like he reached into her brain and changed things. I stared at Teresa. But why go back to him now? After all these years, Teresa shook her head. I don't think she knew it was him. Not at first. Riley changes jobs, identities, even names. He uses different middle initials. He's smart, predatory smart, but she's been with him for months. That's not. That's how long it takes, she cut in. It starts emotional. Emotional control is harder to see than bruises. I leaned back in the chair, head spinning. Why didn't she tell me? I whispered. Teresa looked at me, eyes steady. Because by the time someone like him has their hooks in, you don't know what's safe anymore. You question your own memories. You start to believe maybe you deserve it. She handed me something, a flash drive. She left this with me, in case she couldn't get out. She said, if Ethan ever shows up, give it to him. He deserves to know everything. I held it in my hand like it was a grenade. Then she said something that shook me to my core. Check the last folder. It's not about Riley. It's about your brother. I snapped my head up. What? Teresa didn't blink. She said it would explain the reason she stayed quiet. Said it would make you understand. Back in my car, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. Folders opened. Recordings. Surveillance footage. Audio logs. And there, buried in a folder labeled Hollow Pine, was a set of emails between Riley and someone using an encrypted address. But the signature was clear. M. Cole. My brother. Matt. The one who helped me get my business off the ground. The one who Madison never quite warmed up to. The one who'd vanished from the family for 3 years and only came back last Thanksgiving like nothing had happened. I opened the earliest email. I've got the files you asked for. Ethan won't notice. He's too busy being dad of the year. Another. Keep your side of the deal. I want half. And then, the last one. He's suspicious now. If this blows up, I'm gone. I won't take the fall. My mouth went dry. Madison hadn't just been hiding an affair. She was being blackmailed by 2 men. One controlling her emotionally, the other tied to my own blood. And somewhere in the middle was a truth so twisted I couldn't even recognize my life anymore. This wasn't a betrayal. This was an orchestration, a performance. And now that I had the script, I had one job left. Burn the stage down. By the time I got back home, my hands were shaking so bad I could barely pull the key from the ignition. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal from Madison, the lies from my brother, or the fact that for so long I thought I was just another tired husband with a drifting wife. But this wasn't about drifting. This was war, and I was late to the battlefield. That night, Madison came home early. No explanation, no story, just a tired expression and the same frozen smile she'd been wearing for months. I watched her, watched the way she set her purse down, checked her phone, poured herself tea. Every movement calculated, like she was bracing for something she knew was coming. And I realized she knew I knew, so I waited until the kids were asleep. Then I sat across from her at the kitchen table and slid the flash drive across the surface. She stared at it. Then she broke. Not loud, no tears, just a shiver that ran through her whole body, like her bones were finally surrendering. You went to Teresa, she said softly. I did, I replied. And I know about Riley. I know about Matt. I know everything. Silence. Then she nodded, slowly. I wanted to tell you, she said. So many times. But every time I got close, Riley would remind me he had the emails. He had the recordings. And Matt said if I dragged him down, he'd take you with him. She reached in her sweater pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. I wrote you a letter. Months ago. I couldn't bring myself to give it to you. Not until I knew you'd be safe. I opened it. It wasn't long. Just a confession. That Riley had come back in her life through work. That he recognized her, cornered her, dug up old wounds, and used them against her. He threatened to expose secrets she'd told him years ago when she was just a broken girl trying to feel visible. And Madison found out he'd embezzled funds from my company. Quietly, strategically. And instead of facing the consequences, he teamed up with Riley to bury it. And her. In exchange for silence, she'd help keep me distracted. Subtly, gently. They didn't want to destroy me. Not all at once. They wanted to drain me. Financially. Emotionally. Piece by piece. You never lied to hurt me, I said quietly. You lied because they gave you no way out. Madison nodded, eyes glistening. I should have been angry. I should have thrown the table over and shouted about betrayal. But all I felt was grief. Grief for the life we could have had. Grief for the woman sitting across from me who had tried to fight back in the only way she could, by enduring. I need you to help me, I told her. If we do this, we do it together. But I need you to be honest from now on. No more hiding. No more quiet suffering. We burn them. Together. She swallowed hard. Okay. That weekend, we started planning. Madison forwarded every email, every message, every thread Riley had ever sent her. I compiled Matt's fraudulent transactions from our old books, the ones I had ignored because I trusted him, because he was family. We met with a lawyer in secret, filed civil charges, froze assets. We handed everything over. Then we set the stage. We invited both of them, Matt and Riley, to a private dinner at a downtown venue Madison claimed to have reserved for closure. She made it sound like a last-ditch plea to clean things up quietly. No lawyers. No cops. They bought it. They both showed up. Matt, smug in a suit that didn't fit as well as he thought, and Riley, calm as ever, his arrogance bleeding into the air around him. But when they entered the room, it wasn't just me and Madison. It was our attorney. It was two private investigators. And it was the press. Riley's jaw tightened. Matt went pale. You remember the look you gave me the night you stole from me? I said to my brother. That smug little shrug, like it didn't matter? That ends today. I turned to Riley. And you preyed on someone I love. You made her believe she was small. Invisible. You don't get to disappear this time. They tried to talk, to spin, but they were already caught. Evidence, witnesses, audio, financial trails. And then Madison did something I didn't expect. She stood, walked straight up to Riley, and slapped him. Not hard, not theatrical, but with purpose. You convinced me I was broken, she whispered. But I'm not. I'm free. Riley didn't say a word. He just looked at her like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him anymore. And that was the point. He didn't. She was no longer the victim in his story. She had rewritten the ending. The aftermath wasn't swift. Justice never is. Matt was charged with multiple counts of fraud. My attorneys froze his assets and initiated proceedings to reclaim what he stole from me. He tried to negotiate, offered apologies, dipped in excuses, but I didn't budge. He's still my brother, but now just a name. Some ties you sever not out of hate, but survival. Riley's story unraveled publicly. Turns out Gregory wasn't the only one compiling a file. Our press release led to 3 other women coming forward. All had stories that followed the same pattern: control, erosion, collapse. He was indicted on charges of professional misconduct, coercion, and interference with protected personal data. The hospital terminated him. A criminal trial is pending. Madison and I didn't just return to normal. We couldn't. Normal was dead. But we began again. The hardest part wasn't forgiving her. It was learning how to sit in the same room and not feel haunted by everything left unsaid. We started therapy, together and separately. Some days were quiet, awkward, like we were strangers relearning how to speak each other's language. But other days we laughed. We cooked together. We played board games with the kids. And somewhere in that space, something began to bloom again. Not trust, not yet, but something simpler. Hope. One afternoon, I found Madison sitting on the porch, sipping coffee, watching the wind move through the trees. She looked peaceful. I sat beside her. You ever think about walking away completely? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, every day. But I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to heal. I just didn't know how. You're doing it, I said. She reached for my hand. So are you. We didn't need vows again, or grand speeches. We needed consistency. We needed presence, and we gave it to each other and our kids. The scars didn't vanish, but they stopped bleeding. Noah asked one night why Uncle Matt didn't visit anymore. I told him sometimes people make choices that hurt others, and until they're ready to make it right, distance is necessary. He nodded. He understood more than I thought. As for Gregory Halston, we stayed in touch. He thanked me, not for what we did to Riley, but for giving other women the courage to speak. He told me that sometimes the best way to honor the broken is to never let the silence win. Before he left town for good, he gave me something. A photograph, one I hadn't seen before. It was Madison, young, smiling, arm draped around Teresa. There was light in her eyes. "I thought you should see who she used to be," Gregory said. "Before Riley. Before fear. That woman's still in there." He was right. I see her now. When she smiles at Ellie reading aloud in the living room. When she ruffles Noah's hair before bed. When she brushes her fingers against mine without needing to say a word. I see her. And slowly, she sees me again too. Not as the man she hid things from, but as the man who stayed, not out of weakness, but out of strength. Out of choice. Epilogue. The life after. It's been 11 months. Madison started writing again. Journals, then short stories, then essays. She's planning to publish a piece called The Woman Beneath the Silence. I told her I'd buy the first copy. As for me, I shifted the focus of my firm. Less about expansion, more about integrity. I spend more time at home, more time in the moment. We donated part of the settlement to a domestic advocacy nonprofit. Not because we had to, because we remember. Every time someone asks me how we survived, I tell them this. We didn't survive. We reconstructed. Like a house gutted by fire. We saved what mattered, threw out what didn't, and laid each new brick ourselves. Together. And that, to me, is redemption. Not forgetting, but choosing what's worth keeping.